The lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and they get.
He missed the complete. That is crazy
Side by
stuff.
side, Freitas is on the grass on the infield floor. He slides through. He tags Richard Neagle.
Thanks to the buoyancy of helium from the comfy confines of the blimp gondola high above the rolling hills of Georgia, you're watching the Global Sim Racing Channel's Live As It Happens coverage of Formula Neagle for the Skip Barber Open Wheelers, sanctioned by the Absolute Beginners League and brought to you, as always, by the friendly folks at 4MS Network Solutions. In less than a quarter hour, the green flag will wave here at Road Atlanta, sending a swarm of Skip Barber race cars buzzing into the first corner and kicking off round 4 of this 8-race schedule. If the previous 3 races are any indication, 70 minutes of exciting sim racing will be streaming your way. So hook up your internet to the big screen, put your feet up on the coffee table, and get ready for some Formula Neagle excitement. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another GSRC broadcast. I'm your host, Bill Soup Zahn. With me again is our resident Skippy aficionado, Joe Peak. Turning the knobs and pushing the sliders is the Quentin Tarantino of sim racing broadcasting, Amjad Yaman, and at his disposals will be the visionary cameras, locations provided by Dougie Beard. Joe, the origami pretzel of Suzuka, saw Errol Gnome put his stamp on this series after missing the season opener at Laguna Seca. Num tallied back-to-back wins with the Japan victory bordering on dominating. Now, Johan Hallberg bested reigning champion Tuan Tran for the final podium spots. The car counts continue to impress, but even more impressive has been the racing etiquette of all the drivers that would make Emily Post proud. And now, coming as sweet and clear as moonlight through the pines, is Georgia. What will be on the minds of these drivers here at Road Atlanta?
Thanks, Bill. Road Atlanta is probably most well known for the Petit Le Mans endurance race in the fall, but it hosts a variety of racing year-round. And at 2.5 miles with only 12 turns, many of which are taken very fast in the Skippy, the laps will be ticking off quickly. The elevation changes around here will mean any accidents on the first couple laps with the cars bunched up, it's going to collect a few drivers who can't see over the crest. And to top it off, the long backstretch will make it a drafting game as the race progresses. So drivers will need to start outthinking their opponents before they can outrun them. There's a couple good places to pass, but the most popular will be without a doubt at the bottom of the hill into turn A. Even still, expect plenty of side-by-side action throughout the lap when anyone gets brave enough. And they're going to need all the guts they can get because the walls in places like turn 12 and the S's are very close, and they're going to gobble up anyone that slips off into that red clay. All in all, this place retains much of its original character since it was built in the early 70s and continues to be a driver favorite. But to get a feel for what they're going to experience, let's go to our onboard lap. Alright, we've got Amjad Yaman in the GSRC Skippy, so let's do a lap around Road Atlanta. Coming down to turn 1, it's a very fast right-hander that eventually rises uphill on exit. The high rate of speed means it's going to be pretty dangerous to attempt to pass into here, and you can expect to find the barriers in a hurry if one of you loses control. Now the track switches back, and we have the very blind turn 3. This huge crest means that even as you're braking, you can't spot your apex until you're pretty much on top of it. Expect a few drivers to get cut course penalties when they get it wrong. From there, we've come to the S's. Thread the line and then hold as far right as you can for 5 without getting onto the curb so you don't unsettle the car. Things will really compress on turn-in, but then as you come out the exit, the top of the hill makes the car light. A consistent, smooth line will pay off with speed. Now we've got a bit of a moment as we drift left to set up for 6. This is our first passing zone of the track. This corner is deceptive because once again, we're heading uphill, but there's also a fair bit of banking, so the amount of speed you can carry is more than you'd expect. Before you know it though, you're into 7. Now this is absolutely the most important corner of the circuit. It's slow and sharp, but it dumps drivers onto the long backstretch. Botch your exit and you're going to be vulnerable the whole way down. Moreover, in these lesser powered cars, the draft plays a big role, so trying to safeguard yourself with a great launch will make life easier in defending. But if you are being attacked, the braking for the chicane is coming, so you have choices on defending. The switchback means the right or the left side is viable to try and hold position. The important part will be being late and precise on the brakes. From there, we head over the final crest and then let the car hold left, Then, without lifting, blast through the final corner while just grazing that inside curve, and make sure you don't drift too far outside and into the grass. If you hold it together, you finished a lap around Road Atlanta.
And that was the multi-talented Amjad Yaman, not only directing here today, but also putting in a nice hot lap there at Road Atlanta in the Skippy. Let's go now to the Driver Championship. Now, we have two championships to look at. There's the driver's standings, and then, of course, there is the team championship. Teams are made up of 2 drivers per team. Looking first at the driver standings. Now, because the Driver Championship does not have any drop race compensation, so the consequences of NUM's missed season opener finds the 2-time winner down in 3rd spot, 12 points behind Tran, who leads. Hallberg's taller podium at Suzuka moved the Bushfink racer 2 points closer to the top spot. Now, Pierce Cockey's fuel miscalculations, man, he's had problems with that, and that's got him in 4th place, and that ranking probably a little bit misleading, as he's certainly faster than that would show. And the fan belt, Johan van de Belt, has been slipping all season and remains podiumless down in 5th position there. Now, if we move over to the team championship, and again, these are no more than 2 drivers, and some of these are solo teams, though, as well. 2B1 Racing is comprised of Tran and Bastian Wiesmann. Now, Wiesmann's absence he wasn't there at Japan, so his absence has reduced 2B1's 54-point lead to a mere 20 over Team Bushfink Racing. Now, Hallberg is the only driver on that team that's contributing points. Joachim Lundgren and Mikael Ingstrom have a well-balanced 2-prong attack and has moved Bushfink Blue up into 3rd place. So we'll keep an eye on them. Then you see Bushfink Yellow and then Bushfink Pink. Bushfink Pink. I like the name of that team. Okay. Joe, we've talked about the track the team championships. We've talked about the track. Let's spend a little time talking about some of the race-specific rules and series-specific rules for this for the Formula Neagle.
Absolutely, and as you can see, they are racing in the Skip Barber Formula 2000 car, as they are every week for this cup. Race length this time, though, is going to be an enduro. It's 70 minutes. Normally, their race is about 45 minutes long. Now, the fuel stays the same, 65%, and that's going to mean 1 stop, but it's a bit of a tight pit window because of that. Normally, in the past, it was questionable if it could be 1 or 2. This time, for sure, it's going to be a 1-stopper, but you're not going to have very much flexibility in when you can stop. They expect the cars to go about 25 laps on a single tank, a full tank. Now, they have no fast repairs in this series, so if anybody has any damages, we saw Mark Figueres actually spinning it, getting a little bit of nose damage on the car, then they are just going to be stuck with what they've got, and hopefully, if they still have their pit stop, maybe get a bit of repairs along the way. But with these cars being a little bit aero sensitive, especially on a fast track like this, you want to keep the car whole. Now, obviously, the weather tends to play a factor in the lap times, although everybody's got to deal with it the same as anybody else. But today, 106-degree track temperature on the surface of the asphalt, so it's going to be a little hot. They're not going to be running super quick laps, but at least it's not like it's been some of the weeks we've seen where they have upwards of 114 sometimes, and they're slipping all around, and I'm sure they'll be welcoming that. Just a slight wind coming from the northeast, about 4 miles an hour, so that's not going to play a big role in today's race. But a little bit of a warm day down in Atlanta. That's the conditions we're looking at today, Bill.
Now let's talk a little bit about the drafter. You mentioned it before in the track guide there before we went to the video. When I look at a track, every track we go to has a straightaway, and for these skippies, there's going to be a draft somewhere. But I always look at how much technical section there is between the draft sections, and really here at Road Atlanta, I don't think there's a lot of technical area, turn after turn after turn after turn, where Aero Noom is going to be able to get away from these guys and break the draft. So I'm correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, Joe, but I'm looking at this to be pretty much a pack race here for a while.
Yeah, I wouldn't put against it if we started to see drivers up at the front start to do that. And we see David Burns heading towards one of the few heavy braking zones that you have around here up into turn 6 there, which could be another potential place to pass. But he just finished a little bit earlier the S's, which is one of those places where in some other cars it would be kind of that technical section you mentioned. But in this car, it's just a bit of a slight lift down in the S's, but then you're flat out until you hit turn 5, that uphill left-hander. So you're right that there's a lot of fairly long sections where they're going to be fully on the power, and it's going to keep guys close together as long as you can keep within probably, I'd say within a second, maybe a second and a half of that driver ahead and not lose too much. You're going to be kept in touch with them, and maybe you're going to have to be thinking more than just trying to catch them and pass them, but catch them and when should I pass them.
Yeah, looking at the qualifying time right now, it's Newman Hallberg at the top now. Now, Num is about 0.4 of a second faster. Well, that's almost a half a second per lap, which is pretty impressive. Not sure if it's going to make that much of a difference here on this track. Let's take a second to talk about something we were trying to figure out, and that's going to be tires. Now, in this series runs 45 minutes, what they call normal races lengths of 45 minutes. Then they have these endurance races, which we have today as a 70-minute race. So far in the shorter 45-minute races, nobody's done tires because the fill time is less, and the tires don't wear out as quickly, and as there's no benefit to doing it. We'll see. We're not sure what's going to happen here on a longer race, so that they may actually want to maybe try some tires.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's questionable, but the advice that we've always heard from the drivers when we talk about tires is that the Skippy actually tends to like them being warmed up. So I suspect that you're going to see a lot of guys try and follow that bit of advice and not take tires today. But I mean, you're a betting man, Bill, so you want to take the opposite end? You want to call some money on them taking a few guys taking tires today?
I would do whatever Iro doesn't do, because I know if I do exactly what he does do, none of these guys seem to have the pace. We talked about him. He's really been something to watch. He's fast, and he's got an iRacing that's out of this world. Very impressive guys. We're going to go now. Let's go ahead to one of our favorite segments here, and that is Peaks Podium Picks. And that's it, where Joe. Now, this is our fourth installment, and you got it right at Laguna Seca, but the Sean missed at Summit Point, and then you were only a second away from getting it right at Suzuka. So let's see if you can regain your first race form. Now, you don't have to get the order right, but let's have you make the call here for the 3 drivers to fill the podium spots.
Well, I've actually been priding myself in even getting the order right, so I've been trying for that. I'm honestly, and I know this is the safe one, but he's seeming very strong. Iro Gnome, I think, is going to be getting the win today. Second place, I'm going to have to give it, I'd say, this is hard because Blixt was a lot higher in practice, but he qualified pretty far down. But I think he's going to be able to get up to it. I think Blixt is going to be your second place finisher. And then I think Vandenbelt is going to finally break his duck. I think we're going to see Vandenbelt on the 3rd spot on the podium.
Yeah, he really hasn't been able to get anything going his way so far. And another driver that's having the same trouble has been a driver that we saw a lot in first season doing very well, and that's Wojtek Podolsek. And he's down there again, qualifying down in 22nd position. Just can't seem to get the feel for it right now.
Well, it looks like qualifying is just about over here. We've only got about 20 seconds left, and most everybody seems to have done times. We only got 2 guys down at the bottom, I think, left yet to put laps in. So why don't we go through the order, Bill?
Let's do it. So on the pole is who we expected. There's Iro Gnome with a time of 1:36.4. Now about 4/10 back of Johan Hallberg. They're going to make it the front row. Row 2 is Tuan Tran with Ricard Allard on the outside of row 2. In the 3rd row, Johan van de Belde. And next to him is Mikkel Ingstrom. So that hits the first 3 rows. Joe, what do you see in the 7th position?
7th, it's going to be Bastian Huseman, followed by David Burns in the 8th position. Vincent Brames starting in 9th within the top 10. Let's see if he can get it up there. And then one of my picks, Jonas Blixt, is rounding out the top 10. Let's see if he can make his way through the field. Neil Bamber is going to be starting in 11th, and Joachim Lundgren will round out row 6 and 12th.
James Stacy and Pierce Cockey make up row 7. Frederick Neptune and Miguel Fang. There's a new name in row 8. Eric Lukal and Daryl make up 17th and 18th position. Joe?
19th is going to be Liam Quinn, followed by Martin Galecki, starting in 20th, Andy Morgan in 21st, and Wojciech Podolzek way farther down where they're used to seeing him in 22nd. Lauren Murray is going to start in 23rd, followed by Mark Figueres in 24th. Then rounding out the field, we got Edgar Sanchinelli in 25th, Bruce Poole in 26th, and no lap times for Adam Bradshaw or Richard Cullum. I don't see Bradshaw on the grid. Cullum is actually out there in the final spot.
Yeah, Cologne's a regular, so I would be surprised that possibly didn't get in a clean lap maybe, or maybe just took it off and going to start from the back. Okay, so we have 28 drivers' names on the entry list. I think 27 are going to take the grid right now. Now, Noam is up in front. You can see him. We're going to call that, I'm going to have to call his car color for most of the race. We're going to call it lavender. Keep an eye on Noam. Now behind him in the dark-colored car is Johan Hallberg. The lights are up. Gather up the chickens. Take cover behind the cows because the horses are out of the barn. And Aero Noam leads the stampede down into the first corner, the sweeping right-hander. Behind him is Hallberg. Tran, Allard making a move on the outside in row 4, in the 4th position there. Everyone gets single file. 5th and 6th position fall back there to Vandeveld picking up there in Ingstrom. Joe, what do you see in the back of the pack? Pretty clean?
It was clean all the way through turn 1, but
contact.
we have an accident in turn 3, and they managed to hold on to it. That is impressive.
That was Blixt and Bamber getting together there, and Blixt had it about 45-degree angle. And now another close battle behind them. Stacy in a dogfight with Cocky.
Yeah, that has stacked everybody up severely. Thankfully, everyone was heads up, saw it start to erupt, and got out of the gas, but that means everybody's right on top of each other. Credit to drivers, as we've got actually one off the course. That's Andy Morgan in turn 5. His day is over quick.
Blix being able to save that because he would have lost that in front of an entire herd of little skippies coming his way. Meanwhile, back up to the front, we see that Num's beginning to pull a little bit away from Hallberg. And this is what we want to see right now. If Num's going to be able to break the draft early and run away with this thing, or if Hallberg's going to be able to stay with him. Tran and Allard following right behind them.
Well, if it wasn't problems with his internet, it seems to be possibly hardware problems. Podolzek stopped on the grid, we're hearing. I don't know if he actually took the green, but it looks like we got a replay ready for that incident coming into turn 3. That'll be exciting to watch.
Coming up right now. Joe, what do you see?
Well, it looked like it's typical starts at Road Atlanta as we see Blix there ahead of, I'm trying to remember who it was he was involved with in this incident. And it's turn 3, just kind of everybody comes to that one line because it's a very one-line corner. It's hard to go too wide, and you can see that there. They're inevitably just going to clip because they run out of room. But thankfully, really the big thing, as we watch it from one more angle there as he goes over the camera, the big thing is the fact that he could catch that slide and nobody behind him panicked.
Yeah, great job from the drivers behind. That's the same thing I was seeing there from that long angle shot that we had there of the Dougie Bears camera, where everyone was backing up behind him, but they all managed to get through. Okay, now we're back to live and looking at the lead here, and we were wondering if Noma's going to be able to pull away. Well, the answer is no, as Hallberg is tucked right back up behind him. Tram and Allard right behind them. We have a 6-car train. Vanderbilt's in there with that white and blue machine. And then the last car trying to hang on there is Mikael Ingstrom running in 6th position. And actually still in the hunt, 7-car, Bastian Wiesmann back there running in that kind of lime green purple machine there in 7th.
And look at this, Hallberg closing in. He's looking to the inside, heading down to the most popular passing spot down in the chicane. He's got a nose ahead. So this would probably be a done deal, and in fact, Eero does back out of it by the time they hit the braking zone.
And that's something we haven't had to say very much this season, as Eero Noom has been passed for the lead. Now let's see what he has in store here. Noom's been in races before where he's been damaged by people using the draft for pit strategy. I wouldn't be surprised if Noom's going to, although he looks pretty aggressive, if Noom stays behind back there and saves a little fuel.
Yeah, but he knows that you really don't want to try it into one, especially this early in the race. We're only at lap 3. That corner is super fast in these cars. You're just barely brushing the brakes. Going through there too wide is not only going to cost you time, it's going to be extremely risky because the lift throttle oversteer of this car is going to want to make the rear end just snap around on you through that corner if you don't have it steady. So I don't blame him for not attempting to pass, even though he was close.
Let's jump back a little bit. We'll come back to those leaders because it looks like they're going to be excited. Let's pick up David Burns back here in 8th position. We haven't talked about them. Burns and Vincent Bream in a nice battle there for 8th. Those guys have lost touch, though, with the lead train. Wiesman about 1.5 seconds ahead.
And Burns was looking really good in practice. He was up within, I want to say, the top 5 for most of the practice times. And I was kind of debating if I should call him as one of my picks, but he hasn't really shown in much of the previous races, so I didn't really feel confident expecting him on the podium. And we're seeing him right now still kind of down in 8th, and as you said, losing touch on the leaders as we go back to the lead.
Side by side as they go into the chicane now, and that's Numb on the outside, and he's going to get that position back. Look at Tran trying to peek in there. Tran, this sitting back in 3rd position, what we call the popcorn position, enjoying the show.
Yeah, Tran's in a tough spot, though, because just behind him is Allard, and he can't back it up too much or else Allard could stick his nose in there. So Tran wants to stay in this 3rd spot in case anything erupts, and now we're seeing Noam go defensive down into 1. Interesting.
Yeah, we talked about maybe you don't want to do it there. Well, Noam's going to make sure that you don't want to do it there if he takes that line in. And what it did was kind of hurt his corner exit speed there, and I thought maybe that Halberg might take a little peek coming into the Esseps. Nope. Nice 6-car train now behind these guys. 7-car train, yeah.
Noom a little wide on the apex of 3, but doesn't lose too much time. And these are the smart guys. These are why you see these guys up front. Everybody started to have an opportunity to get it too wide through 3, but everyone got back in line. Nobody really wants to try and make silly moves at this point in the race.
Now, we've talked about this almost every race, but fuel always comes into play here. They start with the same amount of fuel, so in theory they have to put in the same amount of fuel to finish. The only thing is you don't burn fuel the same rate. Newham up there in front is breaking the air. He's going to go through that fuel a little faster than, let's say, Tran, who is notorious for being patient, sitting back there lifting. In theory, he comes in. He'll have to take it as we have a pass for the lead here. Halberg's going to duck to the inside. And this looks like, Joe, the preferred passing spot is here coming into the chicane.
I think Noam's done enough of these races now. He knows the deal. He knows that they're going to go faster if they just let him swap positions as we got a pass behind them.
Yeah.
I think that was Huseman taking the 6th spot, it looks like.
Yeah, Huseman moves up now around Ingstrom.
So he doesn't want to sit at the tail, apparently. Wants to try and work his way up. And, you know, you mentioned that Noam is not able to run away, and it seems to be coming true. Honestly, where I think it's going to start to break up is those pit stops that you mentioned. Who can save fuel? Who can execute the pit stop? Because you and I were talking pre-race about that pit entry. Who's going to get that entry and maximize it the best and be able to maybe just stretch that second or two that they need?
Let's go back to 10th position, Jonas Blix, and we do this at the risk of missing a pass for the lead here. Blix in a nice battle with Cocky, and then Joachim Lundgren back there in 12th position. Those guys just about 1.3 seconds behind Bream in 9th.
Yeah, these guys are nice and close together down in this pack, but they're losing touch not just with our leaders, but with the second little duo that's ahead of them, as you said, about 1.3 seconds up to them. Cocky, I'm surprised he's this down, but, you know, he's a good driver, so maybe strategy is going to come into play, and maybe he can work himself up after the first pit stop here. But we'll have to watch and see. Not used to him being all the way in 11th.
And here comes a pass for the lead, and I think this is going to happen almost every lap now. And here goes Newham on the inside. This seems to be they're just playing nice here, unless Halberg's going to just surrender this, I would think, coming in. Maybe Tran's going to take a peek inside. Nope. And he backs out. And like you said, Joe, he's got to be careful, though, because he's got Allard behind him. And not so much that he's worried about losing the position. He's got to be careful actually backing up into Allard, brake checking him there.
Yeah, and, you know, I wonder if that's what he was doing there. He maybe wasn't attempting a pass, more thinking, I'm going to cover this inside line so Allard doesn't try anything sneaky. And you can see how close Allard is on him. It's about 0.2 of a second between 3rd and 4th at this moment. So he is not safe by any stretch of the imagination.
Now beginning to lose touch a little bit. Vanderbilt's got about 0.7 of a second on Wiesman and Ingstrom, who's dropped back a little bit. Wiesman is probably still close enough to get there. You don't want to lose touch with that draft, though, as he begins to fall a little bit farther back.
Whoa, big moment for Tran. Starts to lose the car, holds it together. Allard loses a position because of that. That means Vanderbilt is now up into third.
Another great save from these skippies. We're going to get a replay of this one from above. As you can see, Tran get that car very much sideways. Joe, what are you looking at here?
We're looking as they head through 3, and they're going to come down through the S's. Like I said, just maybe a slight lift entering into here. They could maybe go through there flat out. And you and I were talking this. I mentioned that this is very difficult in the braking. Actually, before he turns in, he starts to lose the rear end, you see there. So I thought that would be coming up the hill, but that was before he even braked. The rear of the car was starting to snap loose.
Yeah, I've lost the car many times there, but usually I end up in that outside wall, so congratulations. That's a great job from him. Now, what that means, though, is
we got a
Halbert...
three-wide situation here, so sorry to interrupt.
No, that's exactly what we're going to talk about there. Wiesmann now has moved up into third spot there as they were going 3 wide through the chicane, and now making a move. That's Tran in the dark car, trying to get those positions back up into 6th position. Very close now, bumping. Vanderbilt is actually giving a little bump draft to Allard, and Tran gets in there as they go. Now there goes Vanderbilt on the inside of Allard, looking to get up in there. Tran poking his nose in there. A lot of fighting going on there. Easy, boys.
Vanderbilt making it happen in turn 1. I guess he felt like he doesn't want to wait for Tran to try and make the move, which he's doing on Allard on the inside of 3. But you see the problem with trying to pass illustrated there. Tran could not carry the speed because he doesn't want to plow into the side of Allard, and Allard keeps the spot even though he was on the outside.
And what this has done is let your 2 leaders, Hallberg and Noem, or actually Noem and Hallberg this time, really pull away now. 3.2 seconds gap between Hallberg in 2nd all the way back to Wiesmann in 3rd.
Yeah, this is exactly what these 2 were hoping for, was something behind them to help break things up. Now it's just going to be between Noem and Hallberg until the first pit stop, and then it's anybody's game, I think.
And we talked about David Burns in 8th place now because that train is backed up a little bit. Burns is real close to getting on the back of Ingstrom. So you got to battle Burns and Bream in that 8th position. Cocky now all the way up to 10th. Looks like he's going to make a moving follow. Cocky looks like we're going to go 3 wide here. Cocky has nowhere to go. I see trouble of brewing. Ooh, it got really tight there. And it looks like Burns is going to get that position there. Cocky not giving up, though. Cocky on the inside of Bream. As they go 2 wide through the chicane, they get that settled down as they end up into that final corner. And that brings Blixt in that yellow car, that green, I guess it's green car, back into the mix now.
And while that's been going on, Wiesmann was trying to take spots again, but this time it didn't go off. We've still got Vandenbelt in the lead of this group, and Allard is ahead of Tran still. Wiesmann behind them, and then sitting in 7th, we've got Mikael Engstrom.
So we'll step the
3.
Looking at that battle as they go through the S's there. That's the 5-car, really a 5-car train now running 3rd through 8th. Then there's a little bit far back to Bream is trying to get there. Burns, Cocky, Blixt up into 11th position. Joachim Lundgren in 12th now.
Look at how close Allard is. I thought that Vandenbelt was going to stay defensive, but he comes back to the line down in 6. I think Allard knows he's going to get a much better opportunity down into 10. Looks to set him up, coming through 7. You got to really focus on this exit. He's not quite strong enough to really outgun him out of the corner, but that draft is really going to bring him back in. Let's see what Tran does, too, because he came really close to the rear of Allard coming out of 7. Oh, no, we're going to go 3 wide. Tran's going to split him. He's got the speed with both of them giving a tow. And I think he's going to take 2 spots in 1 before they even hit the braking zone.
Vanderbilt took that defensive inside line. I don't think he figured it was going to play out that way. They go 2 wide through the chicane. Vanderbilt still on the outside. He's going to drop back a little bit. Allard's going to take over ahead of Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt not giving up now as he has a little bit more momentum coming through that final corner. Now it looks like Allard's going to lock that thing in. Meanwhile, Tran was the peanut butter between the bread there. And here comes Allard now back on the inside. That's Vanderbilt back on the inside of Allard. And Vanderbilt's going to get that spot back.
Boy, Vanderbilt and Allard have a lot of trust between each other. Oh, big bobble from Vanderbilt, but he holds on to it. That gives it back to Allard out of 1.
Oh, it looked like he was going to lose that right in front of Allard, and that was going to pick up everybody else behind him.
I was going to say, Vanderbilt is being the brave one here. And Allard, too, really, because coming through the chicane, Vandenbelt gave Allard just a car's width over that curb, and Allard took it, and they still didn't touch. I'm amazed at how tight he squeezed them, and they didn't make any contact.
So Tran, after shooting the gap there, putting the needle through the thread through the needle, has back up to third. Nice run back from him after he had that spin.
But all this battling, Tran is now 5.5 seconds from Hallberg, who is sitting in second, way up the road. You can see the gap there. You can't even see him on screen. They're ahead of Tran. There they are. Way down, heading down the hill now into the braking zone.
And actually, don't think we're missing anything right back there. Hallberg has been playing very nice back there. He's actually lifting as he gains on Num. So I think he's happily running in second position. Happy to let Noom lead him around.
And save fuel the whole time. Meanwhile, still more passes as Allard tries to get past Tran. Manages to do it, but Tran's trying to come around the outside of the final turn. Not usually a place to pass, but he still keeps the momentum from the outside, and he's going to have it down in a 1.
And Allard was pinned in there, had a bad corner exit, and Hallberg making a peek in there as well.
These guys are fighting very hard. We are only on lap 10, still more than 50 minutes left in this race. This is still very early on, and these guys are fighting super hard out there.
And just as hard fighting as them, if we drop back to 9th position, as Bream and Burns have been in a battle back there for that position. Blixt running in that.
In fact, these guys are gaining. Kaki's less than a second behind Engstrom. I think possibly this lap or the next one, unless they battled pretty hard behind them, we're going to have, what is this, a 9-car train?
Yeah, well, it's all because of Tran and Allard and Vandenbelt. All the fun those guys are having up there is killing their lap times, and that's bringing those guys in behind them.
Yeah, within one lap, they've lost, looks like 8 tenths on Hallberg ahead of them. And here we go once again. Allard looking to the outside, down to the braking at 10. Behind them, Huseman also starting to come up on the side of Vandenbelt. He's got the inside.
And meanwhile, behind them, as once they get through the chicane there, they get that sorted out. They were 3 wide back there a minute. So much excitement we can't cover. Blixt and Burns in a 2-wide battle now through the chicane.
I think Blixt is going to come out on top, just a nose ahead. Yeah, he's going to be able to take the apex down into the final corner.
Bream went into the straightaway ahead of both those guys, and then they both went around him left and right. Bream was in the middle.
Well, unfortunately, because of that, those guys have now dropped off, and only Kaki has pulled up to the rear of this pack. So I guess what we thought was going to be a 9-car pack is now only 7.
Well, it's hard to get a lot of speed down the straightaway if you're going 3 wide.
Or 6, I should say, if I could count, actually. 3 cars, not 2 cars left off the tail.
Looks like Allard and Tran here have settled down a little bit, and Vandenbelt maybe going to settle down a little bit. Joe, it's a long race. They just can't keep racing the way they were racing. Expect to get there. There's a slow car.
Hallberg dropped off. Hallberg had an accident somewhere. I think he's missing his nose. Oh, yeah, it's coming through 5.
He got into the sand, and he tried to overcorrect. We talked about that in the pre-race.
Yeah, we're seeing it here in the replay. And this is more typical of what I expect to see of this corner. Just pushed it a little too hard. Like you said, up into that sand. Car gets loose on the exit up over that curb, just bouncing around. And there was no saving it as it just wobbled its way into the outside wall.
See, that's what surprised me when we saw that Tran get loose there, that the car actually, he was able to keep it to the inside and save it. I always end up exactly like that. And we're going to look one more time here.
I'm trying to remember, was Hallberg one of my picks? I need to write these down.
I'm afraid he might have been. I didn't mark that one down either.
I'm watching it from on board. Yeah, that is a scary ride, even in the virtual world, when it starts to come away from under you. And the old school nature of this course, I mean, you got about 8-10 feet to that outside wall, and then the car meets a padded tire barrier.
I believe you had the other Johan. That was not the Johan. I think you had the fan belt for this one. He thought he was going to be able
fan belt
to
in third. I remember I called that Newman first. I was trying to remember. I think it was Blixt I called.
It was
for
Blixt,
second.
yeah.
That's right. He's not doing too hot. He's still down in 10th place. He's sandwiched between the cars of Burns and Brame at the moment.
So now Noom's out there all by himself, and we've seen this before. About a 7-second lead, and I don't think he even has any traffic to worry about here for a while. So he's got it. We won't have a lot of camera time for him as we're going to go back now, take a look back at Tran, Allard, and Vandeveld in this second, third, and fourth battle back here.
Yeah, let's stay on this battle, but I just want to touch on Noom. With this much of a gap and the way he's been performing so far in the season, I feel like it's already his race to lose. I know there's a long way to go. He could still make mistakes, but if he doesn't make any mistakes, his pace should hold him up. Even a strategy call is not going to allow these guys to catch him at this point.
No, but we've seen before, I think, Joe, you were off at Daytona, we've seen where back markers sometimes play a factor in this one, too. They call it the Absolute Beginner League, and they do welcome in a lot of drivers that are early in their career. As we're watching right now, let's go ahead and watch Allard in a battle again. Boy, that 3-car train up there. So there's when they get back to the back mirrors, there's a lot of guys who are inexperienced with letting leaders go by, so that's always a factor in this event.
And I'm pretty sure we've seen it. I remember at the end of the race in Suzuka, the last round.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, coming up at the Spoon Corner, a lapped car tried his best to get out of the way, but unfortunately there was, I think, the slightest bit of contact or whatever it happened. It's definitely unsettled. I believe it was Tran, and he went off course for a moment on the final lap, which has got to be just gut-wrenching, knowing that you could have had a chance to try and make things happen there. But like you said, as we ride on board with Vandeveld, currently sitting in 4th, we got now a 3-car train for 2nd through 4th position, and about 7.5 seconds up to our leader. They do have some lap traffic. Frederick Neptune is the next car up in front of them. That is not the leader that they are gaining on there on your screen. This is a little bit farther down from Neptune that we've seen too. He's in 25th position.
Yeah, being so far off the pace, I would imagine maybe he ran into a little issue somewhere back there.
We've been focusing so much on the exciting battling for the leaders. I'm sure there's some stuff that we missed a little bit farther down.
Well, yeah, I'm going to take you back there right now. Let's go back to Mikhail Fang back in 13th position. In a nice little battle with Eric Lukl here.
Yeah, Lukel's got a nice draft. Fang decides to stay defensive. Lukel's actually not even going to try and take the position. He backs out way before the braking zone. Even still, Fang holding onto that inside line down into the chicane. Didn't really lose much, though. Gets himself a nice exit.
And then we'll back 2 more positions here as we'll watch coming into as they go through the final corner, just crossing the start-finish line about now. Martin Galenecki and James Stacy. In fact, Stacy going to make a move on Galenecki here going into 1. Stacy going to move up into 15th position.
Stacy not afraid to take it into that fast corner, but you can see the problem once again. Cannot carry the speed through there. And then on the outside, Galenecki is going to switch to the inside for 3, 2 wide through there. And they managed to make it work. And even though he lost time on the first one, it looks like Stacy's able to hold the speed that time. Now down through the S's. Usually don't go too wide through here. It gets very tight. And finally, Galenecki is able to claim the position.
And here comes Neil Bamber because of the guys had a horrible exit there through the corner. Bamber's going to get a run on Stacy now. Great racing, and Bamber backs out. Great racing all through the field.
This is...
Halberg is giving up the ghost here. It looks like he's very slow.
Might be deciding to head into the pits. There we go. He took a tow. So something interesting. Something must have happened to him for him to take a tow, unless he hit the wall again. But I wanted to say that's a great example of brains over brawn there. When you go too wide like that through those sections with those guys that were fighting, you saw how much time was lost there, that car behind them was able to catch up. You have to race with your head, not with your heart sometimes, especially in a track like this, in a car like the Skippy. It's not about pass right now, as we jump up to the front and seeing a pass going on right here. Tran overtaking Vandeveld. Vandeveld coming right back up to the rear spoiler, but nothing doing here into the S's.
And that's given Allard a little bit of a lead get away from these guys. Going back to Hallberg, he was actually running a pretty good clip, even with that damaged nose. But I was watching him, and then I think the car was just too much of a handful for him to race.
Sorry, let's go to Piers Cock. He had a huge moment. I was just going to check on his progress. He was all the way up to 5th, And once more, turn 5 bites another one. I expected this corner to catch a lot of drivers out, and it is not disappointing. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That was almost exactly what we saw before with Hallberg, except in Cocky's case, miraculously, he kept it out of the barrier.
Yeah, and turn 5 is so important because it gives you that run down into 6. It's really the first of the long straightaways there. And now we're looking up ahead. If we watch here with Wiesmann, Bastian making a move, getting around Mikael Engstrom. So that's Bastian up to Wiesmann up to 5th position, Engstrom in 6th. And Cocky doing a great job after that spin, Joe. He's right there hanging with those guys back in 7th. Didn't lose a lot of time after that.
Yeah.
Wasn't really a spin, just an off.
That draft has been a bit of a saving grace for a number of guys, I think, today when they've had huge moments. And hey, shout out to Mikael Engstrom, currently sitting in 6th here in this group between 7th and 5th. This is not a bad showing for him. He's usually an upper mid packer, but today he's up there.
And remember, there's 2 championships. There's the driver's championship and the team championship.
And we had a car off, and that might be that's Neptune. Excuse me, that's the lap car of Neptune. I think he might have just been getting out of the way. Could have been a mistake that just worked in his favor, though. Yeah, he's letting everyone by until you can see him intentionally going off the track as now we switch back to this battle up to between 5th and 6th.
Now we're on it right there. You can see focusing there on Wiesmann. Wiesmann, Engstrom, and Cocky now back in the hunt. Cocky has been fast all season. He's had some horrible, we talked about it in the pre-race show, fuel miscalculations that have cost him position after position after position in several races.
And something's happened with Daryl Atkins. It looks like he's slow on track, and this is in 5. Looks like he didn't hit anything, though. Just spun it around.
Little 360.
Here you'll see another good example of that compression of turn 5. Coming up into there, it starts to bite, and it's more than you expect, and that sends the rear of the car around. Like you said, nice little pirouette. Doesn't hit anything, and thankfully nobody else was behind him, so he could get going.
You almost have to turn the wheel back before it bites, because if you wait for it to bite, it's almost too late there. You almost have to anticipate when it catches when you're trying to save one of those things. As if I've ever saved one.
We'll just pretend you have.
Yeah. Well, I know what not to do. I know how to do that. Meanwhile, let's go back to 2nd position here. Tran, it looks like Tran and Allard's going to make a move here on Tran here pretty soon.
Now, as these guys have been not fighting too hard, but still you can tell, like I said, they don't have the pace that Eero has. It's now 9 seconds between our leader and 2nd place Tran.
And honestly, it doesn't look like Allard. I think Allard could have forced the issue there going into 6 if he wanted to. Let's see what they do through 7 here. Let's see if he really wants... Oh, he's loose.
Ooh. Chucked it in there a little bit too hard. That's going to hurt him on the exit, but once again, this draft is just so forgiving in these cars. And he looks like he's pulling over, so it's Johan, because he knows he's going to have a little bit more speed behind him. He's just going to let him on through to try and catch up with Tran.
Yeah, there was no way he was going to hold Vanderbilt back on that with that exit. So Vanderbilt moves up now into the 3rd position.
Yeah, these are all top runners in this series. These guys aren't fighting too hard at this point. Still 42 minutes left to go and a pit stop left to have. So they're going to try and do what they can to try and run down Nome, but that's going to be a hard ask, I think. These guys are really going to have to be pushing and cooperating to make any sort of dent in his lead.
There we go. Maybe drop back now to Pierce Cocky, who's got his way up to 5th position, has got around Wiesmann and Engstrom after that spin, so he got that all back. And as we're watching this, just to follow up on points, you know, Tran is still your points leader right now, so a 2nd place finish is really still enough to keep him in the lead. What he wants to avoid is a mistake that there are no fast repairs here, so one mistake could be really costly.
Now, as we watch Pierre, as you were talking about how he's been having trouble with that fuel calculations. Remember, he was just off the podium so many times last season in the Absolute Beginners Neagle Cup. And he was a rookie then, and he immediately was on the pace, getting top 5s everywhere. I expected him to play a little bit more significant role in the championship this season, So I'd love to see him start to redeem himself, get a little bit higher finishes. See what he can do today with the endurance rounds. Maybe it's going to be a little bit of a different game for him here with a longer run.
Yeah, well, he tried a software package that didn't work for him. And here's, we look up here as we have a pass for Tran getting gone around here by that's actually Vanderbilt's going to move up there in that white and blue machine, moving up into second position. Cocky has tried like a software package that helps him calculate the fuel. He's tried his fingers and toes. Nothing has seemed to work so far. I think he's got it figured out though now.
We need to send Sean Ambrose. He's our
honestly
our crew chief in Turn 2 Motorsports. So maybe we need to get him some second brain out there. Meanwhile, look at this pack. Cocky in 6th. Bastion just ahead of him in 5th. So that group is going all the way from 5th back to, looks like 11th place. Large pack.
Now, just to give you a reference of where they are, Allard currently is running in 4th, and of course that'll change because Tran and Vanderbilt are swapping those right back. But who's ever running in 4th right now, about a 6 seconds gap back to, actually now is Wiesman, who's ahead of Cocky, huh? Wiesman running in 5th.
Ooh, Vanderbilt with a big moment coming up through turn 5. Doesn't matter how many races. Yeah, it doesn't matter how many races that I see here at Road Atlanta. I always think to myself, oh, 5's probably going to be a trouble spot, and it just delivers in spades.
Well, there's just no room for error there. There's speed all the way out there to the wall. I mean, it's not like Vanderbilt went all the way out there. He didn't even lose a spot. Let's go to it right now. 3 wide
situation. And Allard sees this happen and he says, no, I don't think we need to do that. Backs out, pulls in behind Vanderbilt. Tran is going to take over the front of that lead trio.
It was a nice job from Allard there. He could have forced that issue. There's plenty of ways to force it here as he just get him up here. These guys can have whatever position they want.
Yeah, and speaking of Sean, he always likes to say racers like to race, and you could tell Allard wanted to. His instinct was go for that inside line as we see Vanderbilt try it into 1, but decides not to at the last second. And look at that, just compromise that exit significantly. Allard once again electing not to take it.
It's just so much fun to race, though. I mean, and actually, there's no money involved here. They're here to have fun, so you really have to balance the fun of racing against the thrill you get from a good finish.
And, there's a lot of mental equations going on as well, because, like I said, the draft can make you a little bit faster. That slingshot down the backstretch, you saw our leaders swapping back and forth, not fighting each other. That was probably giving them, a second or two on the lap. So these guys are they're probably thinking in their head, okay, do I try and use this draft and fight them? Or do I hang back? Are we going to be faster if I'm in the lead? And I'm sure, as you know, Bill, every race, all these drivers think I am the fastest one in this group. I should be up at the front.
Well, that's something I learned from Richard Eklund, who's a 2-time champion in the MX5 World Tour, another series of covers we're watching now as there goes Vanderbilt on the inside of Tran. We talked about him when we having an aggressive race, and we said to him, well, Richard, man, you're really trying for the championship. And he came back by saying, no, you'll know when I'm trying for the championship when you don't see me racing like that. So, it's kind of when I'm thinking big picture, drivers are much more conservative. And these guys up in front here, Vanderbilt, these guys are doing it pretty safely.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few moves where it starts to make me lose my breath for a second, but for the most part, they're holding back. For the most part.
Meanwhile,
speaking of which,
the battle, you going back a little bit farther, Engstrom and Cocky and Blixt. Blixt having a great race running back there in 7th position.
Blixt, but you gotta get a little bit higher up, buddy. I've been doing so good, man. You gotta help me out here.
Let's see if we can find someone to go a little bit farther back while things are settling down here before we go to the pit stop. See if we can go way back and see if we can find somebody.
I did see some battles a little bit ago, but it looks like most of them broken up. This was down in places like 20th and 19th.
Well, tell you what, let's go to our leader, Errol Noman. We'll go ahead of him as he starts to getting into traffic here. A little bit up there is Lauren Murray, currently running in 20th position, all by himself, just going through the chicane right now. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. It's 1,000, 4,000, about 5 seconds ahead of Newham right now.
Yeah, there's no back marker review in this series, Bill, for you to get some attention on these guys.
All pretty well spaced out back there. 19th is Galeniki. Record Cologne back there in 18th position. Liam Quinn, all separated by about 2 seconds. Liam Quinn running in 17th.
Let's jump back to 9th, where we've got David Burns on the inside of Lundgren down in the final corner. Another place where it can be a little sketchy going too wide, but they manage it. Just behind them, that is Vincent Brain. Remember, 2 seasons ago, he was one of the top contenders. Yeah, and we keep mentioning it, but it seems like he's struggling with this influx of talent. All the way down, struggling for a top 10 today. I'd love to see Brenson use maybe a little bit of Vocek and start to pick his brain, see if he could use some of the knowledge that he has and get the Two Stupid Dogs team back up to the front.
Yeah. And not to toot the horn of the Global Sim Racing Channel, but that's kind of what happens when you get on the broadcast like this. It draws attention to your series, and it starts bringing in the learning curve gets a little steeper, the talent level a little thicker. And also, drivers change. We've seen this from season to season. Drivers that weren't so impressive in the first season, they learn from this, and they become, somebody to reckon with there. And now here we go. Let's go ahead and keep an eye on Burns here as he's going to make a move. Lundgren making the move on the outside. Burns in the blue machine on the inside.
Some of those Bushfink cars, Lundgren, as well as Jonas Blix just ahead of him, his teammate, probably want to try and get up with him. And that's something we need to ask some of these guys, how hard they're thinking about that championship, because it varies by series on teams if they're going to be working together. And we're hearing something might be happening with Allard. Oh, Allard is the first to kick off the scheduled stops. It looks like 34 minutes left. This is about 2 laps shy of what we heard from drivers saying they could go about 25 laps in. He is on lap 23. And our leader is in. You can see him just ahead of him. Yeah.
Now, they've used the same restricted fuel for both the 45-minute race and the 70-minute race, so the window is going to be much smaller here in this long endurance race than it is the 45-minute race. We've seen Tran almost no-stop it in previous races. Okay, Newham is out.
And he is slotted down into 11th position, and it looks like, actually, this is perfect for Newham. He has nobody behind him. And Neil Bamber is the next car up. He's a little ways up the road, and then nobody in front of Neil. So he has a nice piece of clean track. I don't know if he has a crew chief. If not, he got very lucky, or he has very good instincts there. But that's one of those difficult things on these series that we have with pit stops, where it's, in F1, they're always looking for that gap. And the same is true in the sim racing world. You want some clear track when you pit early.
So that puts our leader out there now. As Tran is our leader, and he's being chased by Vanderbilt because the car that was with them, Allard, has peeled off. And now here comes
Vanderbilt's in. And let's watch him make this pit entry nice and smooth. Nice job. Like we were saying, that you really, it's like a chicane, basically, a very fast chicane heading into there. And there's only one lane, so these guys have to practice that if they want to get a good pit stop. Otherwise, you're losing time to your competitor. Everybody coming in now.
See if we can find Newham, pick him up. Just coming out of 4 right now.
Newham is actually on the front stretch.
Yeah, on the front stretch. I'm sorry, 4. I was the last corner, sorry.
We're not in an oval.
I have an oval race coming up here later. I was in oval mode.
And you can see, like I said, there was no hope of anybody catching him. He is well clear of the next car, which is coming out now, and it's Vanderbilt. And in fact, Vanderbilt is by himself. He has Lauren Murray a little ways back. Now he's got Tran, who's yet to pit, so Tran might still yet exit with him.
I've seen Tran do this before, though. I think Tran, if he thinks he's faster than the guy who's hanging on, which would be in this case Vanderbilt, and he thinks Vanderbilt's just there because he's hanging on under the draft, Tran will stay out there and try to run a couple laps and see if he can break the draft out on the track. See if he
Now I'm seeing 6 seconds between Vanderbilt and Allard, so he had a much better pit stop than his opponent. And here we see Tran now in for his stop. Let's see where he comes out.
Now, we don't expect him to be anywhere close to noon, but we'll get an eye and see if we can find where Vanderbilt is, because that's really where we're going to get an idea of how this works out for him.
So this could be a boon for Vanderbilt on getting that podium finish. Remember, twice now Vanderbilt has missed out on the championship.
Vanderbilt, the fan belt just going through the chicane right now, so he'll be coming around to the final corner, heading onto the main straight, going past pit entrance right now.
And I'm keeping an eye on Tran. He's still stationary. He's all the way at the front of the pit exit. Now he's taking off.
Vanderbilt's crossed the start-finish line.
This is going to be very close, actually. Vanderbilt's going to have the momentum as they head up the hill, but I think Tran has got him. By how much is the question, and I'm pretty sure that Vanderbilt is going to be able to get the draft once they get on the backstretch, as long as he doesn't make a mistake here, though. He's about 1.2 seconds behind Tran, so he's right about at the cusp.
I'm going to take a quick look here, so Joe, you can follow the action. I'm going to see if I can see if Tran actually took tires or not.
Yeah, we mentioned that at the start, but we haven't talked about it since. Identical pit times we're hearing for Tran and Vanderbilt. As they come onto the backstretch, it's down to 1.1, so just a tenth for Vanderbilt in the half lap that they've taken. Let's see if he starts to gain here. Must not have gotten a very good exit. It's holding stationary at about 1.1. Down into the braking zone. Now we'll really start to see if he's able to gain a little bit. Numbers start to come down. Having that little bit of extra speed down into the chicane. Coming out of the exit, he's got about 3/10, so now he is very solidly within that draft. It's going to be a battle for second here in the latter half of the race with only 28 minutes to go, Bill.
And from what I could tell, reviewing Tran's pit stop, it looked like the car stayed on the ground the whole time, so I don't think he took tires, and I don't think anyone took tires here, so that answers that question.
Yeah, I was pretty certain that guys are probably not going to take tires throughout this race. These tires tend to not really go off. And as I said, they tend to like a little bit of heat in them, so nobody's really going to want to take that risk.
Yeah, it's not so much maybe that the benefit, it's what you sacrifice on those early laps out of the pits.
So now with our pit stops done, let's go through our order. Euronome's still our leader by about 10 seconds. Tran is in second place, but that might switch back and forth with Vanderbilt closing in the draft, sitting in third. Allard has definitely dropped off of these guys, and in fact, he's going to have some trouble of his own in fifth in the form of Bastian Huseman.
Then there's a nice battle back here in sixth position. Burns, Ingstrom, Cocky back there, Ream, Blixt, and Lundgren, all running pretty much nose to tail from 6th to 11th.
Well, I think it's safe to say unless something dramatic happens, I'm not sure I'm going to see Blixt in one of my podium positions today, sitting down in 10th.
And look there as he's being passed on the outside here.
No,
that's
Blixt is in the yellow car.
In the yellow car, so Blixt has the preferred position going into the chicane.
And Brame Brame just lets him through, although he has a little bit of competition behind him. Lundgren trying to sneak in there, but no space at the apex.
Nice battle going on. It's all the way back to 11th. And then, if we can quickly go back to 12th position here, Mikkel Fang and James Stacy. These guys have been going at it all race. We showed them earlier. There they still are again, back for 12th and 13th.
Just cannot get away from each other. I had this discussion with Johan Vanderbilt before the race, and As I was saying to him, and he agreed with me, when you're a driver, the draft tracks are like, oh no, it's because you can't get away from someone even if they're slower than you. But as a commentator, I love these draft tracks. We got plenty to talk about all race long.
Well, like we talked about it, for me, it's not so much the draft, because we get that almost everywhere. Everywhere there's a long straightaway. It's when there's a long technical section where guys like Errol Noom can break the draft. And actually, if it wasn't for the mistakes that happened from the drivers behind Noom, Hallberg had trouble, Tran had trouble. This could still be a 6 or 7 car train up there.
Yeah, and there you see Noom all by his lonesome out front through the chicane, and the gap is such that only just now are we hitting the braking zone with Tran and Vanderbilt, and the fan belt has in fact closed that gap now to down to 3/10. So if he wants to, he could try and start slingshotting him.
And this is good news if you ever want to come to this track. I know where I'm buying my tickets. It's somewhere right before the chicane there, because that's where all the excitement is. That's where the passing zone really is. Although they do a lot into one as well, which is surprising.
Much
that's
more,
dangerous.
yeah. I didn't think that there would be so many brave guys for that one. And here's a familiar name that we'd love to see back racing in the series. Marcel Seidel is telling us in the YouTube chat that it costs you about 30 seconds for the tire change. So pretty obvious why guys aren't taking that.
Looking at this battle, this is really a hot battle we have on screen here with Engstrom, Burns, Cocky running back there. He's in that running in 8th position. He's been over from about 5th to 8th the whole race.
Yeah, just can't seem. And I'm pretty sure he's got the speed, but just can't seem to get away and also hold up at the front. Everybody just keeps passing him back by. They've got a little bit of a gap to the guys behind them. That's probably what he's really hoping for. He'd rather have a 3-car battle to deal with than a 6-car battle. Blix leading the way in the pack behind them with Brame and Lundgren. Slipping to the outside. Nobody's boxed in as he closes in on the pack of Engstrom with nowhere to go. That's going to give at least one spot to Burns here. Still 23 minutes left on the clock in this endurance race, though, Bill. So all this swapping as Cocky now gets a run coming out of the final corner. It really, I don't think, is going to mean a whole lot until about 5 minutes to go.
We'll go back to right now the battle here for second, as this is pretty tight. And it's Vanderbilt in a battle with Tran. Tran leading the way. What we're going to try to do is we're going to put the camera on these guys as they follow them around, and when they get up to the chicane, then we'll see if we can pan back to all the battles as if you were sitting in a grandstand spot and see what you would see.
If our director can manage this for you, I think you caught him out there.
We're directing from the booth here. Meanwhile, side by side here, and there goes Vanderbilt on the outside. Vanderbilt on the outside of Tran. We're going to do it as if you were in the blimp.
I'd love to watch a race from the blimp.
Okay, yeah, I know those are expensive seats. So now here's our blimp shot. You can see them as they come down to the chicane. And that's Vanderbilt up in front. Now, if we pan back a little bit, we'll see the other cars as they enter the chicane.
That's Allard, followed by Huseman, heading into there in 4th and 5th.
Then we have the 6th car, the 6th position of Pierce, Burns, or Cocky, Burns, and Engstrom. Blixt, Lundgren, Bream going through.
Lauren Murray, we haven't talked a lot about him, but he's a lap down. That's her 20th car. Then Edgar Sanchinelli behind him. That's actually a battle for position between those guys.
Then there's James Stacy, and they're actually Stacy beginning to be picked up there by Fang and Lupel. Bamber, Galenecki in 16th spot.
Galenecki, actually almost going off track. Having a little
Sorry
problem
about
there.
that, Martin. Right when you were on screen. First time you've done it all day.
Then you got 22nd, Richard Colombe, another car that's a lap down. He's behind Sanchinelli, Murray, and Quinn.
Just coming up the chicane now is Daryl Adkins.
In fact, Galom is our last car on track as Frederick Neptune, even though he's still in the server, he is sitting in his pit stall. And that should be all of our field, actually.
I don't think we got Bruce Poole. Did we get a shot of Bruce Poole?
Poole should be the last one, because
Okay.
I think we had Quinn at some point.
There we go. And that takes you all the way back, and Quinn is just about ready to go a lap down as Boone is coming up on him. 20 minutes to go. Noom coming across, going to be starting lap 31 as he crosses the start-finish line here. 19 cars still on the lead lap, with Quinn being the last one, soon to be 18.
Looking to see if we can find anybody actually willing to battle. Now we're actually starting to get cars spread out. Fewer and fewer multi-car groups and more duos than anything. Behind Vandenbeld and Tran, we've got Ricard Allard and Bastian Huseman for 4th and 5th. And then you got a ways back to Cocky, who actually does have about 4 cars together. He's got Burns, Ingstrom, Blixt, and 5 cars. Lundgren closing on the tail of them. But they've dropped Vincent Brame. Brame might have had some problems somewhere along there because I thought he was in the thick of that group.
We'll see if we can find Vincent.
And Vincent, I think he missed a shift coming onto the backstretch about a lap ago. Because he's just, there's nothing wrong. He doesn't go off into the grass. Car doesn't get loose. Just everybody accelerates away from it. And that's the last place that you want to miss a shift, is coming onto the backstretch.
Oh, my. That's a penalty you pay for a long time.
Yeah, and we don't know for sure if that is the case. Could be something where he maybe cut a corner and he had to serve a penalty.
Let's look at David Burns right now. We have a little bit of action as they go down the chicane. Mikael Ingstrom going to make a move on the inside. This is for 7th position. Ingstrom in that yellow and violet, purple, I don't know. Maybe it's green. I'm not calling colors.
Ingstrom looks to be blue and yellow.
Blue and yellow, okay. Well, he gets the job done, whatever color that car is, in the 7th position. Burns back to 8th, Blix into 9th. And Joe, I talked about it, the etiquette that these guys have. Honestly, some broadcasts that we have, poor Amjad spends 60-70% of the time going back to replays, watching accidents. These guys are very clean for a large field on these skippies that tend to be a handful sometimes. Good job from these guys.
Yeah, I mean, considering when we had 28 cars, 27 cars start this race, that's a very large field. So that's a lot of credit to these guys, especially in the opening lap. We didn't see any pileups. Anybody that fell off was single car incidents.
We came close. There was a nice save. I can't remember who it was there we saw in that first lap. Got loose early in front of a big stream of cars. That could have been ugly.
So why don't we go down through the order then one more time with about less than 20 minutes to go. Get everybody up to date with where everyone is. Noom is still our leader. He's been up at the front since the start, but since about a quarter of the way through the race, he has been unchallenged. Johan Vandenbelt in 2nd at the moment. He's been swapping back and forth with Tran in 3rd, Bill.
Yeah, I almost hate to call that. We'll just call Vandenbelt and Tran running 2nd and 3rd. You pick the order, depending on when you look at them. Back in 4th position is kind of the same situation as our Ricard Allard and Bastian Wiesmann there, running in 4th and 5th. We go a little bit farther back. Nice battle going on back here. There's that yellow car again. It's Ingstrom in 7th, Blixt in 8th, Burns, who just made the pass, into 9th on Lundgren in 10th, and Bream way back in 11th, Joe.
And see, completely different from what we saw a few laps ago. Cocky now up at the front of this group. But I don't think he's going to be able to stay there long. I'm sure it's all going to come down to timing with these guys. That's why you're going to see guys that would rather be in a 2-car group than a multi-car group like Pierce has, because you can drop behind one car and try and snipe them at the end of the race, but if you're behind 4 cars, it's a lot harder to try and pull the move from behind at the end.
What we'll do when we get to the end here, we'll call the leader as he comes across. Then we'll try to jump back and get all these battles as they come across, because it's going to be exciting. The battle between Vandenbelt and Tran, that'll be exciting for 2nd position. The battle from Allard and Wiesmann will be exciting for 4th. And then who knows what's going to happen in this big train here with, like you said, Cocky, Blixt, Ingstrom, Blixt now moving up into 7th spot.
So far, Cocky able to hold on this half of the lap. Now as we come on to the backstretch, let's see if Allard is going to try and pull the pass. He was actually a little bit ways away, about half a second behind Pierre's. Let's see what he can gain here. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to attempt to pass, so Cocky's going to be able to hold on to it. And maybe that's going to be the trick for him, is if he can just stretch out that maybe 7 or 8 tenths by the time he hits the backstretch on the last lap, he can know that he's safe to keep from getting passed on the final snipe.
That's wishful thinking. Really, turn 7, you don't want to have you certainly do not want to have a bad corner exit on 7 on the last lap.
And excuse me, I think I called Allard earlier. It's Jonas Blixt is his teammate. He has the same paint scheme. You see Allard in 4th.
You know, we've seen those cars. In fact, we've actually seen Allard do it up ahead where it was a 3-car and he decided to back out of it. I don't know if we're going to see that type of courtey when the last lap. I think if you have a room to make it 3 wide going into the chicane, that may be the way you have to do it.
The racing gloves will be off as Allard actually has a moment coming through 5, goes a little wide. He stays defensive as he gets a bad exit coming up to 6. Again, this is a place where you can potentially get a pass, but I don't think Bastian was anywhere close for any sort of pass coming into there.
Meanwhile, Tran, I guess I can't remember how about in my notes. Tran is now leading Vanderbilt. Is that how it was last time we looked? I don't think so. I think it was the other way around.
I think you might be correct. And at this point, these guys should know what they're able to do on fuel. So for Johan, it's not a fuel issue. It's all more of a timing thing. Like I said, when do I want to go? When do I want to make this pass?
Well, let's talk about that, Joe, for a second. Do you think there's time to get to the start-finish line after the chicane? If you came out behind somebody at the chicane, can you get there before you get to the start-finish line?
It all depends on if you're side-by-side coming out of the chicane, because it's all about carrying your momentum out of that corner. I've had races like that, and this goes for any car, not just the Skippy at Road Atlanta. That's one of the exciting things about this track, is you're set up for that last lap slingshot coming through the chicane, and if you can't get it done, if you're still side by side, suddenly now it's a drag race, and it's all about who carries that speed better. So sometimes it can be favorable to be on the outside of that last corner in the chicane, because it's better to be able to know that you can track all the way out, because when you're on the inside, you run the risk of that other guy not quite being fully tracked out, and you could make contact. So you have to kind of play it safe unless you want to be very aggressive and potentially shove your opponent off the road. Now, some drivers can do that. That's not the way I like to race, but some drivers like to do that.
And you know, this is maybe the best chicane around, and it's almost, we use chicane, it's almost really not a chicane. It's really like 2 legitimate corners there, because you can go, there's not a lot of chicanes you can go too wide through, and this one you can make it work. But what's, like you said, what's interesting here, if you may not have the preferred position at the beginning of the spot, but maybe be on the outside for that final part of the chicane is where you want to be. Leaders, as our second place drivers go through right now, Tran and Vanderbilt run through it right now.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, because we saw Vanderbilt back away very early. I'm wondering if he's sizing things up. He's starting to figure out his plan. And with 12 minutes left, so with these guys doing laps in the 137 range, let's see, what have we got left then? Maybe about 8 or 9 laps left?
Yeah. I would expect things to go smoothly for those guys, for the 2-car trains up there. I think where we're going to have trouble is back here in 6th position with Blixt and Cocky.
That is going to be the one to watch.
Because nobody's going to want to be 3rd going into the chicane there. And there's so many positions to be made up. I mean, Lundgren back there in 10th legitimately could still be the winner of that train.
Of that group, yeah. But the point that I'm trying to get out here is I think that Vanderbilt, I think he's experimenting now. I think he's trying different things, seeing what works and what doesn't, and sizing up Tuan Tran.
And I think both these drivers, I think Tran and, well, Vanderbilt has it. This is Vanderbilt's looking at his first podium. Sorry, I got the wrong Johan involved there. I was thinking of Hallberg, who hasn't missed a podium this time.
You say he has this, but we know from this series it is not over until it's over.
This would be the Vanderbilt's first podium if he can bring it home. Season. Yeah, of this season, somewhere in either second or third here.
I'm sure he'll be happy about that, especially after not being off of the podium for all but a single race last season.
Coming just out of the pits, we haven't given a shout out to him. I thought it was Podolzek, but it wasn't. Podolzek is in the pits right now.
Yeah, he's 27 laps down, so he's been gone since lap 10. I think he knew that there was nothing he could really do with that internet problem that he did. I don't know if we ever reported that. He did actually have to disconnect and reconnect. I don't know if that was him intentionally disconnecting or if it was more internet issues, but he had to leave the server.
That's a similar problem that he had last race. And we talked about him. He's one of the faster cars last season, and that goes... The fan belt as well has had issues. You know, he has. We talked about him not having a podium yet. It's not because of lack of speed. It's just things are outside of his control, or maybe partly his control.
Yeah, it's frustrating when that stuff happens. I remember I was for a podium finish for a race once, and my internet went out. And it's something that you can actually see. These guys have a little graph up in the right side where that starts to go red if your internet connection is going bad. When you see that start to happen, you're just going, oh no, please, please, please. And then all the cars disappear and you get kicked out.
What we're going to do is we're going to take a second, and we have time. We're going to watch Edgar Sanchinelli here. We haven't called him much, and why do we care about him? Well, in a little bit, Sanchinelli's going to have 5 cars to let by. He's got Cocky. Look at this battle behind him here. He's got Cocky and Blick still going at it. And Ingstrom. They put a little distance now. Look at Lundgren has dropped back a little bit on these guys.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure if he made a mistake or what happened there.
Well, Lundgren was behind Burns a minute, so Burns has really fallen back. Maybe Burns got into some trouble. But what we'll do is we'll watch here as Cocky is leading the way. It won't be too long until they get up to Sanchinelli here. Sanchinelli just going into 1 right now, and now here come the rest of the guys.
Car starting to grip on the way up the hill, and that's one of those interesting features about this first corner at this track. Is it's a fast corner, yeah, but really what makes it faster is the compression of the car as it starts to climb up in elevation. So you really chuck it in, and it shouldn't take the corner, but it does because the track changes in the pitch.
Yeah, you can see on the Dougie Beard camera there you can really see the rolling of the track. Even right there, you can see the cars as they come over on that long shot. You can see them going over the rise.
I wonder if we could get an onboard with Edgar looking over the rear suspension as these guys start to gain, especially here on the backstretch. If they got a good run, they should start to really close. And there we go, right over the suspension, just under the wing. You're going to see these little dots get bigger and bigger.
Great camera, you can see the rolling going on there. There goes that yellow car now of Lixt, going to lead the train into the chicane.
Didn't quite catch him down the backstretch, but actually this is really not what they want, because now, unless he lifts here on the front straightaway, this is going to be a bad situation because they're going to be heading into a very technical part of the track. Is he going to pull over and let them all by?
He is. Look at this. He's going to let them all. Now that's a great job.
I don't think he's going to have all of them manage to get by. Oh, he's slowing. Yeah, there we go. Now he's going to get them all by. But just ahead, I don't know if you could see, Piers Cocky went back to the front just ahead of Blixt.
Edgar, nice job running there in 22nd position.
That is
you did
good
that
awareness.
Excellently done, buddy.
There's been an interesting discussion on that on the iRacing forums about should we expect back markers to lift when you've got leaders coming up? And to me, my answer is it's not in the rules, but it's a social thing. You as much as some people might not want to admit it, you're making friends out on track. And when you pull moves like that, we remember that, and we're going to treat you a little bit nicer next time we see you.
Well, it's a little bit easier for Edgar to do it. He's not racing anybody. It gets a little tougher when you've been racing, if he's racing somebody for 21st possession over the last 45 minutes.
Oh, absolutely, and that it goes both ways. If you're a leader, you have to see that battle happening and know, okay, we're both battling, so there's just going to be a little bit of craziness here, and we have to accept that this is the situation. What happens, happens. Swapping places on the backstretch once again for these guys. Look at Engstrom. Oh, sliding on the inside of Kaki. Kaki's not having any of it, but there you see. There is exactly what I've been talking about. Engstrom was on the outside, but because he could track out, he got a much better exit, and he's going to have the position to the line. That's what these... Yeah. When the last lap comes, watch the guy on the outside.
You would almost want to be defensive going into the chicane, so at least you... Oh! Boy, Kaki is loose!
Very loose, and he's going to lose 2 more positions. In fact, in that, Lundgren manages to get 2 positions as well. Right by his teammate.
I think that was all a rhythm thing that happened way back, all the way back to the chicane. You lose your rhythm, you just don't. You carried all the way over, all the way into corner 1. So there he is again. Poor Peters, all the way back into 10th position.
Peters must be pushing it. Now, here's an interesting development, Bill. We keep mentioning the teams every once in a while, and that can come into play. Johan Vandenbelt, he is on a team with Liam Quinn. You can see it's called Team Talent. I guess a little bit of an ego boost for themselves there. Now, Quinn is a lap down. He's not in this thing, but you have to wonder, is he going to want Quinn to come up and get involved with these two to help give him a boost? Maybe give him a draft. Let Quinn get in front of him and have 2 cars pull him along so he has an extra slingshot.
Yeah, that would be fair in my book. As long as you're not blocking, if you can get a little benefit from your team, I have no problem with that.
Pull the Ferrari method there.
Yeah. 4 minutes to go. Just about over 4.
Yeah, just under 5 now. So, are we going to see Johan start to go now? There's no full course cautions that these guys have to worry about.
Maybe, Director, we about to do our due diligence and maybe put the camera on the leader real quick. Errol Noam up there, 19-second lead, just to let his friends and family know he is still out there on the track.
Not going to pull a Bernie Ecclestone here. Make sure that he gets some airtime.
All right, that's enough of that. There we go. Looking now at Tran and Vandenbelt.
And yeah, Johan has made no moves to try and pass. He has been stalking him. And if you're Tuan Tran, unless you're a very cool customer, you got to be sweating a little bit because you know that Johan is no fool, and you know that he's setting him up.
Well, let's stay on this for a minute because they're coming on the back of Bruce Poole, and they're going to catch him. Are they going to get around him before they get to the chicane?
Poole is able to lift maybe or brake a little bit early here.
There they go.
Yeah, he's able to get out of the way. No problem for these guys.
Vandenbelt had to be worried a little bit there. You don't want to get split going into the chicane and let Tran get away from him.
And we've almost forgotten. We haven't checked in a while. Bastion and Ricard Allard, those guys are still going at it for 4th and 5th, so that's a battle to watch. All right, 2.5 minutes to go here. Got to watch the leader and see when he crosses the line. If it's less than 1.5 minutes, then it is the final lap.
Oh, and as we look in, there's Allard just did the over-under. Yeah.
The curse of the director. I know how that goes. I've been directing before.
Now, Wiesman just was in 5th. Allard got around him, and Wiesman got around him, and Allard got him back. Now they're coming up, like we said, on Liam Quinn here as they go down into 6.
Burns was a part of that group, wasn't he? I'm seeing him not in the sim. Or at least not on my timing and scoring, I should say.
I think that Burns may have disappeared, perhaps. Yeah, internet problems.
Okay, this is where it's going to be very close, I think, here. We might have 2 more laps to go because here comes Iro Noom with 1:40 left. They do 1:36 laps. White flag should be this time by. This should be it.
So Noom comfortably out in front. I think we'll probably be able to, since he has that big lead, we're going to see the white flag. I'm still showing green as it is, but we'll see that as he gets closer to the start-finish line.
Undoubtedly. Oh, and let's go to Vanderbilt. He's making his move now. He is not waiting for the last corner.
Interesting.
And he swaps in front of Tran.
And Tran is coming back.
Oh,
no.
And Burns, we forgot to mention the incident limit as, wow, Johan is really pushing the car as he slides it sideways through 3. But Burns ran into the incident limit.
That's a tough way to have your race end.
Absolutely. Something you got to pay attention to in this series. We'll talk about that post-race. I don't think we have time to go over the incident limit now. This is the battle I want to watch.
We can stay on these guys here as they go, because Noam's still not to the start-finish line. We'll see what happens as they go through 7 here. Noam's still not to the chicane.
The gap is we're going to have to cut to Noom right when these guys hit the braking zone where it's going to get exciting.
I can call this ahead of time here. Noom going through the chicane.
Noam is coming through the final corner. Go ahead, Bill.
And your winner of the 4th round of the Absolute Beginner League is Errol Noam as he comes across the start-finish line with a nice 20-second lead. Let's go back to second position.
We've got Vanderbilt on the inside, heading down to the chicane. We were talking about this is the spot he wants. Oh, but he gets him completely cut off. Can Tran get a good enough exit? He's right behind him. I don't think he's going to be close enough as they come around the final corner, and it looks like it's going to go to Vanderbilt.
Now, for the battle for 4th position is going to be Allard as Wiesman goes very wide in the final corner, and Allard is going to get 4th, Wiesman into 5th. Blix is going to get 6th. Back to Cocky and Lundgren, Joe.
Blix unchallenged. Somehow he separated himself to Cocky.
I'm going to make a point to go back to that. Oh, let's go back to 12th position. Here it is. Lukel, we've been watching it all race. Lukel and Fang. Fang out in front.
Yeah, I think Fang's going to have it. Great exit coming out of that final corner. So Fang with 11th, just shy of a top 10.
We've been battling for the entire race, those two. Neil Bamber is going to get 13th position.
And no battle for James Stacy, a little bit behind. He's the last car in the lead lap, 14th position.
There you go. So we'll stay with him until he crosses the start-finish line. Come on, James, get it on over there. And we'll go to break right now. So there you have it. All the 14 cars on the lead lap have come through. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back for driver interviews, run down the entire field, and do driver plugs. Back in just a few minutes. Welcome back to the Global Sim Racing Channel's post-race coverage of the Formula Neagle. Brought to you, sanctioned by the Absolute Beginner League, and brought to you by the good folks at 4MS Network Solutions. Let's run down the final standings. How many drivers did we have all the way through here? 28 drivers took the grid. Your winner is today Aero Noom, finishing up about 19 seconds ahead of Johan van de Velde. Van de Velde getting his first podium of the season. Final podium spot going to Twan Tran. Ricard Allard goes into 4th position, followed by Bastian Wiesmann. The 6th and 7th spot goes to Jonas Blix and Piers Cocky. Joachim Lundgren, in the 8th position. Number 9 goes to Mikael Ingstrom, and the 10th spot goes to Vincent Bream. Joe?
Mikhail Fang finished in 11th, followed by Eric Lukul. Good battle between those two, coming home 12th. Neil Bamber, contact in the first lap, may have given him damage. We're not entirely sure, but he finished way down in 13th, unfortunately. James Stacey coming home in 14th place, and Martin Galenicki in 15th. Bruce Poole, these are the guys a lap down here at the finish. Bruce Poole finishing 16th, Lauren Murray in 17th. David Burns in 18th, and Liam Quinn down in 19th. And it's Richard Cullum rounding out the top 20.
Hitting Blackjack is the driver whose name I've practiced pronouncing, Edgar Sanchinelli in 21st. Daryl Atkins and Frederick Neptune in 22nd and 23rd. The double dozen position goes to Johan Halberg, who had that trouble in corner 5. Going to finish way down. First podium he's going to miss this season. Adam Bradshaw in 25th. Mark Figuras Bradshaw in 25th, Figuras in 26th, Wojtek Podozek in 27th, had that internet connection problem, and Andy Morgan 42 laps down in the 28th spot. Okay, we have interviews ready to go. Do we have our race winner? We do, and we're going to let Joe Peak talk to him. If we can chase down Aero Noom, we've got him in there. Aero, Joe's going to talk to you. Joe?
Eero, congratulations on yet another win. You're looking very strong indeed in this championship. Now, in the past, we've seen you struggle to get away from the draft and make it a very tight race from these guys. Today, you were able to get a little bit of luck and break away. And once that happened, you seem to really have the pace on everybody. So what's the secret? What do you think you're doing differently that's getting you those extra tenths that's better than everybody else out there?
Yeah. Maybe practice. Also, I think I used different gears in different corners, so maybe that was faster.
Yeah, not a lot of setup changes that you can do in this car, so I guess it must be a lot of down to how you can drive it. Now, I know you missed the first round and there's no drop weeks, but you're doing very well in the championship. Are you thinking about trying to go for the crown?
Well, I don't know. It's getting, it may be very close in the end. I'm trying to do all the races there is left.
You look set to certainly be doing that. You've got a hat trick now. So not very many left in the season, with it being a little bit short. Like you said, not a lot of time to do it. Do you really think you can win all the remaining races? Do you think that's a possible goal for you?
Why not?
All right. Optimistic.
Maybe the last race in the Watkins Glen, there is even more draft. That will be difficult.
Certainly, we saw in previous seasons that is very crazy out there with the draft in these cars. Well, again, congratulations. Well-run race. You certainly schooled everybody out there with almost 20 seconds on second place. Nicely done.
Thank you.
That was Eero Noom, our first place winner here today. Let's go to Bill, who's got, I believe, one of our other podium to talk to.
I do. I have the guy in the second tallest podium, the fan build, Johan van de Velde. Johan, you have a copy?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, congratulations on your first podium. Let's talk early in the race. You're in the big train there.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. You guys all have to be hoping that maybe somehow you can stay with Eero, but it never seems to quite work out that way.
Yeah, Eero is just quick, and I just heard his interview, and he's saying that he doesn't know yet if he's going to go for the championship. Well, it's like Formula One. It's for me pretty clear who's going to win this championship. Yeah. That guy is just amazingly quick, and it's so difficult to stay in his draft. But for some reason, with all the people behind him, like Rickard was amazing today, Johan Halberg, Twan, and I just popcorned a little bit behind that in P5 for a while, and for some reason we managed to stay behind him. It was a little bit difficult until Twan had a half spin around halfway, and we lost the draft. But yeah, before that we were just able to to stay in the draft with Iro.
We were talking in the booth, and that seems to be his strategy: is just get out in front and just run it, and eventually somebody makes a mistake, and then he's gone.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a very good strategy because it has brought him several wins so far this season.
Yeah. All right, let's talk to you. I have a couple questions for you. You're in there. You're in the battle, and Hallberg goes out. So now you're in the battle with Tran. You pit earlier, and then when Tran ran a couple laps after you were in the pit stop. Were you worried that he was going to break the draft, or did you think you had the similar pace to him? Let me ask you this: can you tell that you're as fast as him when you're in that 2-car draft?
No, you cannot tell that, but I knew that I could match his pace when I was in the draft. I had to make an earlier pit stop because I was out of fuel. Like, I couldn't have done another lap. And I think that Twan was closer to other cars in the draft, so he could release his throttle more and save more fuel that way, and therefore he could do several extra laps. And I just spoke with Twan after the race, and we both underfueled greatly. Like, I missed around half a lap when I went out of the pits, because I was just hoping, like, okay, with that time gained, I can stay behind Tuan, get a cap to Rickard, and just stay behind him, a fuel save until the end, and then hopefully in the last 2 laps pass Tuan. And well, that worked out in the end.
All right, let's go to the end then. Joe and I were talking about where you were going to make the move. We thought it might happen going into the chicane. You decided to do it into turn 1, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because we had several practice races this week, and I found out that the back straight is so long in this Skippy that once you get past, you can slot in behind the guy who just passed you, use his draft, and immediately pass him back into the chicane. And that was what my strategy was. So I tried to get past one in turn 1. I was slightly quicker than him, I think, in the last corner, so I had a good run there. And then when he passed me on the big straight, like, I just immediately dived in behind him to get a little bit extra speed, and that gave me the opportunity to pass him into the chicane.
You had it all planned out. It's a chess match. You were thinking 3 or 4 moves ahead. Congratulations. It's good to see you on the podium. Let's see if we can get another one next week. And congratulations on your second spot today.
Truly hope so. Thank you.
Johan van de Velde, his first podium in this season. Congratulations to him. Joe, who you got?
I've got Bastian Huisman. Maybe we can finally clear up whether or not we're saying his name correctly. He had a top 5 out there today, so a very nice run. Was in a good battle with Ricard Allard all day. So I guess first question, Bastian, is how should we properly pronounce your last name?
Yeah, you're doing it right. It's Huisman.
Huisman. All right, there we go. So we'll make a note of that. So you were in the battle with Ricard, much like we just talked with Johan in his battle with Tuan Tran. Did you also have your move planned out for the last lap, or were you wanting to try and battle before that?
My fuel software crashed during qualification, so I didn't know how much fuel I had to put in, so I slightly underfueled. So first I had to fuel save a little bit, and then when I knew I had enough, I tried to battle him.
You started in 8th position, and early on in the race, there was quite a large group that was all together for the lead. When you saw that everybody was kind of holding together, did you have hopes for the top 5 or maybe even a podium, or did you think that you were going to be stuck down a little bit lower in the top 10?
Well, I had good hopes because I thought my pace was pretty good, but then with the fighting I made some mistakes and it was just too crowded, so I decided to pit early.
So we talk a lot during the broadcast about the talent that is coming into this series, and that seems to continually drive in and really up the level, the standards of the group. Do you think you can continue to try and fight for these top 5s, or do you see the Formula Neagle Cup continuing to get more and more competitive as these seasons go on?
Yeah, well, the last season I didn't really have the pace, but then during the season holiday my pace got a little bit better, so I was like, I might be able to fight for higher positions, but then everybody else also got a lot faster, and I'm still fighting for top 5, something like that.
All right. Well, I got one more question before you go. This is a Bills on question for you. Light milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
Milk chocolate. Dark chocolate.
Oh, changed his mind at the last second. All right. Thanks for coming and talking to us, Bastian. That was our 5th place finisher today, Bastian Huseman.
These guys are close to Switzerland, so they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us, except we're not going to quite wrap it up yet because we have these important sponsor plugs to do here. And these are the people that make this broadcast possible. So stick with us because there will be a quiz at the end. Hey, Joe, how's your network running? Is it running good?
We get decent internet out here.
Okay, well, you might want, if you're having trouble, you might want to go with our friends at 4MS Network Solutions Limited. Founded in 2007, 4MS Network Solutions is an IP communication and network service company with a global reach that's global, so they can get to you out there in Colorado there. 4MS designs, installs, and supports its clients' infrastructure, both on and offshore and in the mountains, in the Rocky Mountains where you are. With a team of Cisco-certified engineers, a Cisco Premier partner, 4MS provides IT hardware sales, carrier services, and it provides a full complement of professional services for the Cisco lifecycle. 4MS Network Solutions Limited. Sing it with me, everybody. Making your network better, stronger, faster. And also like to thank the Absolute Beginner League for organizing Formula Neagle and contracting with Global Sim Racing Channel to broadcast it. Thanks to the companies, equipment, and software that you see on the screen right now that we use on our broadcast. And of course, the original music that you've heard on today's broadcast is thanks to Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde. See the screen on how to contact each of them. Ask for the soup discount. Thanks to my mic mate, Joe Peak, our director, Amjad Yaman, and Dougie Beard for his camera locations. If you'd like to find more about the Global Sim Racing Channel, you can find it at theglobalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on Twitter at GSR Channel and Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel. Formula Neagle returns in 2 weeks, March 13th, for the 45-minute race from Mooseport. For details on all the upcoming events. And don't forget to come back in because I got to leave this Atlanta road course and I got to get over to the Atlanta Speedway to run an oval race coming up in the Weed Stand United. That's later tonight. Weed Stand United series from Atlanta Speedway. And since they're so close, it makes it easy for us because you don't realize the details we go through here to do sim racing realism. Not many of you understand that after the races are done, we actually signed up for iAirlines where we get on this simulated air travel, and it's a software where we actually have to fly from location to location. So all the GSRC crew has to do that, and so hopefully for today, since I'm both in Georgia, it won't be so tough for me to do that. Of course, George Peak, when he does it, he's a prima donna. He flies in the virtual first class area while the rest of us are stuck to suffer with virtual coach and simulated pretzels and water. So, but Peak, Peak, that's.
Well, I was gonna say, if you're staying in town, are you getting the iLimo service and going across
I'm doing the Uber. And now that the housekeeping is out of the way, it's time for us to go on and have fun storming the castle. So until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.